Is there someone in your life who refuses to change, even at the cost of something bad happening to them? Is this someone so stubborn that it sucks the life out of you, even thinking about trying to convince them of doing something new? Today, we're going to talk about rigid people. Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. For those of you who are coming back, don't forget to subscribe. Today's topic of discussion is rigid people. So the first thing that comes to someone's mind when I say a rigid person is usually someone older. Now, this could refer to your parents or your grandparents. Here are 5 signs that you're dealing with someone rigid and how to get by. You might have heard this term OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, and there's some semblance of truth to this. It's very likely that this person has some form of OCD. This makes them obsessed with certain things that give them the illusion of control. This could do with a routine, following rules or guidelines, or just be obsessed with perfectionism. In the case of a lot of older folks, we see this very commonly when it comes to religion, or with some activity that has to be performed at a specific time during a specific day. People like this cannot tolerate any deviation to their routine and can get really upset if something gets in the way of them accomplishing this task. So here's what you do when you see this happening. Think of an underlying reason that's causing this person anxiety right now and causing them to act out. If you're close to this person, consider talking to them and reasoning how nothing will happen if they don't complete the task that they've been pining for. This of course is only applicable to cases where there's no immediate threat to anyone. Our second point has to do with being unable to accept blame for anything that they do. A lot of people who are rigid might reason with you and say that they mean well or that they have the best intentions in mind, but then they proceed to do whatever they want to and then ruin things. This is obviously not okay. This comes from their inability to accept or understand any other perspective other than their own. And this can be infuriating for anyone who's always being made the scapegoat in this kind of situation. When blamed for something, this kind of person just offloads all of the stress that they're feeling onto the scapegoat. Now, how do you deal with someone like this? First of all, escalating and getting into a shouting match with this kind of person is not the answer. Instead, ask the person to take a breather, go for a walk, maybe watch some TV to try and calm themselves down. This helps them shake off the initial stress of being blamed for something. Explain how this person is and see if their behavior may be excused. Our third point is having unattainable goals and desires. So to rigid people, they may have a few goals and desires in their head, and this may not be goals that they have for themselves. It might be goals that they have for other people who are important to them. They want the other person to achieve these targets and goals just so that they feel happy about it. It's completely possible that they've thought through major life decisions such as jobs, careers, who you're going to marry. They've thought that out completely for somebody else, but they've never even talked to that person about it. This can be infuriating and once again really difficult to understand. But get this, the rigid person has no idea of what it means to experience your perspective. They just care about their perspective. Once rigid people make up their minds on a course of action, it's next to impossible to get them to deviate from their current path of thinking. A strategy to get them to see reason is to play the what if game. Go up to them and say, what if? What if I did this? What if I got this kind of job? What if I married this kind of person? What's the worst that could happen? By doing this, you lead their thought process into reasoning with you. But be warned, it's only going to work if you try and convince them multiple times and you keep reinforcing this in their mind. This could also backfire because a lot of people like this tend to have a selective memory where they omit things that cause them to change and they only remember things that support their thought processes. Our fourth point has to do with denial. People typically go into denial when they can't face the truth about something that isn't in line with the way they thought something was going to work out. Let's say you tell a rigid person about your new girlfriend. In their mind, they've already decided what's going to happen. It could mean marriage or it could mean that you guys break up. But if things happen differently from what they imagined in their head, they can't handle it. The best way to deal with someone in this predicament is to offer rationalizations that are in their line of thinking. Think of it as training wheels for their emotions. It's better to ease them into the truth than to let them handle it head on. Handling difficult news head-on leads to a high amount of stress and may result in a health emergency, and no one really wants that. Our last point has to do with them being excessively overbearing or confrontational. As rigid people, they may be in a position where they're constantly imposing their point of view on other people, and they basically have a my way or the highway mentality. So logical reasoning isn't very effective in a situation like this. In the event what they're saying sounds ridiculous, take a cue from their book and just repeat what they're saying to you back to them. But do this in your words. This again and again until they realize that it sounds completely nuts. The trick to doing this successfully is to use their words to give them perspective on how insane they sound. This way, they might open up to your point of view as well. To conclude, this is how you can best handle and manage people who are being difficult in your life. On a sensitive note, this topic might have reminded some of you of your parents or your grandparents, and you might feel like the situation is completely lost whenever you try and talk to them. I know it can be frustrating, I know it can be infuriating, but try to be kind to them. After all, I mean, you're all they got. But remember to be firm if they're being difficult. You can either enable them or you can make it worse for them by confronting them with the truth. And I know these aren't great options. I could always recommend that you go and see a therapist, but people like this aren't exactly open to the idea of therapy, so it's not the best choice in this case. It's just better for people who care for them to learn how to coexist peacefully.